Here is another CEO You Should Know on iHeartRadio.
Good morning, I'm Dave Wilson. Welcome to CEOs You Should Know. Our guest today is Mary Beth Jarvis, the CEO of Wichita Festivals. All right, Mary Beth, what's your Wichita story? Tell us about Wichita.
Well, I'm a transplant, though 24 years later, that has sort of faded in memory. My husband and I were both actually in the Air Force, and so being stationed at McConnell Air Force Base is what brought us here.
Right.
And honestly, we were convinced 2 yewe and we'd get back east where we belonged. And yet every year there were more and more reasons to stay. And so we came here with no kids and now have two 20-somethings. And it's interesting. This is the kind of town, I remember folks saying this to me early in my time here, where you're just so proud to be from there. Whether
Right.
you're still there or not, you're proud to be from there. And I would actually take it a step further now, having been here for 24 years, is that it feels like home in a way that, no other place you can go to will, even if you are somewhere else for a while. So anyway, we've really enjoyed getting to know the community. I've had a couple different phases here.
Right.
In the military, 15 years out at Koch Industries, which was a lifetime of learning and amazing experiences. And then now 6 years heading up Wichita Festivals. So kind of in the community business full time now, whereas it was more of a hobby before.
Right.
And it's been incredibly rewarding.
Tell us about your education and work experience prior to coming on board with Wichita Festivals.
Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
but I went off to school at the University of Notre Dame. So I'm a Fighting Irish fan, which was hard to be last
I was going to
Saturday
say,
night.
sorry for the loss.
At the Cotton Bowl, but next year
Right.
we're working on it. But no, so I came here again with the Air Force. The Air Force paid my way through Notre Dame.
Okay.
And so as a young officer, I owed them about 4 years and did 6.5. And the last 2 of which were here at McConnell Air Force Base. My last active duty job was as the Chief of Public Affairs for McConnell. So part of my job was to integrate base and community activities and base leaders with community leaders. And it was really my first exposure to the hearts and the minds and the wonderful energy of the business leaders and civic leaders that have helped make this place great for the last 25 years. And so it was a tremendous experience.
You've already touched on a little bit. What are some other ways how your military career kind of helped you get where you are now?
Well, it was interesting. My last day in combat boots and camouflage was a Friday, and my first day out at Koch Industries was a Monday. And I acquired an entirely new wardrobe in the 2 days in between. But I found a lot of things, despite the fact that there's a lot of differences, right? The military is a very hierarchical culture, and Koch was very flat, right? You're at the table to add value, not because of the rank on your shoulder, but because of the ideas you can bring. And it was incredibly energizing, right? You want to be on your A game because you are around these brilliant and dedicated and imaginative folks. But I also found things I'd learned, particularly leadership lessons in the military, translated 100%. You're only going to get from people as much energy as you give as a supervisor, as a leader.
Right.
And you're only going to get from a community endeavor the energy you give it. And that's something that's been really a theme throughout everything I've done professionally.
Sticking with your years at McConnell, what do you remember most about the air shows that you coordinated?
What was interesting, it was the first and, as I now understand more fully, last, for a reason, time that we coordinated the McConnell Air Force Base Air Show and Open House with Riverfest. So I actually got to see 25 years ago the plotting and planning for a river festival from behind the scenes from the air show side. And that was, you talk about an octopus dancing with another octopus, right? It was crazy, but it was my first exposure to the business that is Riverfest, and it was an amazing experience. And so, fast forward years later, as I was becoming involved with it as a sponsor, right out at Koch Industries, and then now as the full-time gig, it's just funny to think back on kind of how that behind the scenes felt from, sitting in a very different chair.
Right. Who knew back then?
Right, exactly.
You're listening to CEOs You Should Know this morning. Our guest is Mary Beth Jarvis, the CEO of Wichita Festivals. Let's talk about your years at Coke, where you were the Vice President of Government and Public Affairs and Communications Director. Tell us about working at Coke.
I'll tell you, I mentioned earlier how energizing it was. You really, you're just surrounded by folks that are just on it, and that's wonderful, and diversely talented, right? Incredible business people, but also a lot of really creative folks, people that are sort of heart forward in how they deal with their teams and their supervisors, but also really keen economic thinkers. I just learned so much about how you manage an endeavor, whatever that is, in a way, like you owned it. That
Right.
spirit of entrepreneurship is alive and well, no matter whether you're in a giant institution like Koch Industries or now in my case at Wichita Festivals, helping to manage a community institution. Because fundamentally, you've got to prioritize. You've got to put your resources where they can do the most good for your customer. And, when you're Koch Industries, those customers are either buying fertilizer or buying Lycra or Stainmaster carpet or, brawny paper towels. At Wichita Festivals, the community is your customer. And what they're buying is that experience of community celebration and community unity. And you've got to run an organization responsibly and with keen economic thinking in order to keep bringing them a great product
Right.
every year.
Yep.
I remember when I first started at Wichita Festivals, Wichita had, gone through some pretty tough economic times, and the nice to haves like community celebrations, had suffered because of it. Sponsors, had struggled to support the festival the way it had in the past. People's entertainment dollars were short. So we'd had some tough years. But internally, the organization also needed to figure out how to prioritize and what were the most critical things, right? Whether you're running a household or you're running a business or you're running a church, there's a million things you've got to do right, but there's about 5 that can kill you.
Yeah.
And you've got to know what those 5 are.
Right.
Because if you can't differentiate those from the other, 999,000, you could really be missing the boat. And so that was one of the first things we did a few years ago, was make sure we kind of understood what our 5 were and and at all times, you got to draw it back to your customer, right? Who buys, who cares about, who benefits from what you do, and do you keep them in mind at all times? And that was a real invigorating effort, and I'm just so proud of the team at Wichita Festivals, the staff, our incredible volunteers, the people that have given their hearts to what we do for 47 years in order to give this gift back to the community. So you want to be great for them because they've invested so much in having this be a hallmark of Wichita's quality of life.
Let's talk a little bit more about Wichita River Festival. Why should Wichita have a river festival?
Well, it's interesting because like in so many other ways, Wichita really fights above its weight class in this respect. I don't know that people kind of appreciate this, but so Riverfest began rather modestly. We celebrated our centennial back in 1970 with the one-day festival aptly named the Wichitennial, so creative. But, the city fathers and some of the business leaders that helped organize that stepped back and said, okay, that was good, right? It was a day where everybody came down to the river, where we unified, kind of enjoyed everything in our collective backyard. And so they formed Wichita Festivals as a 501c3, a charitable organization, looked all around the country to model after different festivals and picked up the idea of this icon, which we now know as Admiral Windwagon Smith, as a symbol of the festival and ambassador to the community, and grew it into the now 9-day festival that it is. And it is not just the largest and longest running community celebration in Kansas. It consistently, as measured by Pollstar, ends up in the top 40 outdoor events worldwide.
Is that right?
And that's by ticket sales. That's like by button sales, right?
Yeah.
So you can use your button multiple times and you can transfer it. So we actually get more than 400,000 people come to the festival. But just if you take our button sales, which is about 100,000 each year, that puts us up with some of the largest and most, impactful and well-run festivals in the world. And And we couldn't do it without all the great support that we get.
Obviously, it's a year-round venture for you guys. Give us like a thumbnail sketch of what a year of planning for the festival looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we do other events, Autumn and Art at Bradley Fair in September, which is a wonderful 3-day art show and sale on the northeast part of town with our host, Bradley Fair, great supporters in Fidelity Bank and others. It's an awesome event. We've helped the city out with events like Open Streets. We run a charity golf tournament in September, the Bob Struble Memorial Golf Tournament to benefit cancer charities. We helped do the events to open up the new airport, the Eisenhower Terminal at the airport a couple years ago. But fundamentally, Riverfest is the signature project. And so we start on it the moment it ends. Well, first we sleep. And it really is a 12-month venture. We've got a couple hundred volunteers that are year-round leaders of what we do. And the moment one festival ends, they're back scheming for how we can make the next one better and even more well-organized and smooth. And then we, as a staff, do the same thing. It's contracts, it's sponsorships, it's supporters. We have almost 300 companies and organizations around town that make possible what we do via their financial contributions and their partnership. And so every year we engage with all of them. How'd we do? What'd you think? What could we do different or better? We have a lot of nonprofit partners from, Goodwill Industries with whom we've got the Cajun Food Fest or other, arts and culture organizations who are showcased on our quite literally big stages at Riverfest. And so we engage with all of them. It's a ginormous business in terms of contract values, whether it's fireworks or food vendors, to porta pots and private security. We've got to continually evaluate, negotiate, and lock in those services and functions. We basically stand up a mini city for 9 days, and then we give downtown back in a day, which is pretty amazing. And we do that for a lot of reasons, right? In the 9 days, we add between $25 and $30 million to the local economy. And that's awesome. Right. You need that, right? That infusion of energy and economic impact to our downtown. But more importantly, we bring the community together in a way that is unique. Folks that, don't necessarily wander through downtown or by the river very often. The East Siders that think west means west of Woodlawn, or the West Siders that never get out of Newmarket Square, right? Yeah. We bring them downtown, but we bring everyone, and it's neighbors together. It's every segment of our community, and it's outsiders. On a weekend in Riverfest, you're likely to see as much as 40% of the audience is coming in from out of the region, out of that 1 hour drive, kind of radius. And so it's hospitality and kind of showing off the best of what we've got, even as we celebrate together.
You're listening to CEOs You Should Know this morning. We're talking with Mary Beth Jarvis, the CEO of Wichita Festivals. What are your dreams for the future of Riverfest?
Well, it's interesting. I wake up with dreams. The staff wakes up with dreams. But we also listen really carefully to the dreams of the community and even more specifically, the dreams of our partners. We've got volunteers that have been doing this, their whole adult lives. And sometimes they're out there volunteering with multi-generations, right, in their family. And they've watched us do great things and do dumb things and do things we could improve upon over the years. And so we want to be responsive to their dreams for the festival, the things that either from the past that were awesome that maybe we can rebirth, and renew and reinvigorate and do some things that are true to the core of our heritage, but also their dreams for evolution. I think about some of the ways we focus the festival. First of all, over the last few years, we've felt it's really important to keep up and in some cases raise up the artistic cred of what we do. Not only do we want to bring in musical artists and performers from around the country that are amazing, we don't Deep Purple in their walkers, right, is not who we want performing at Riverfest. We want energy and talent and, in some cases, surprising performances. And so we work very hard for that. But arts and culture includes other, our symphony, our music theater groups, the Laughing Feet performers, the ways that we showcase local artists in our Artist in Residence program, all of those things we've focused on over the last 5 or 6 years to really ensure that people know we want this to be credible and uplifting when, on an arts and culture level. But we've also focused a lot on people's expectations and dreams for the festival with regard to the user experience. It needs to be safe and secure. I need to feel good about going to the festival with my family or sending my teenagers down or taking my grandkids. And we've worked very hard on that and respecting the button. We gated the facility or the festival area, made all the difference for a few years there. And it was a good-hearted attempt to make everyone feel welcome and to not have any barriers for people to attend. And inclusiveness is part of our mission. But sometimes when there's no barrier, you get folks that aren't really there with the right intent. Right. And so in 2013, we gated the facility or the festival grounds. And just that, at the time, $5 barrier as $3 for kids. Mm-hmm. We invented that new kid button to make it easier for families. We cut arrests and security incidents at the festival by 96% in 1 year.
Is that right?
So it made a gigantic difference because we owe to our festival goers who are there on purpose to celebrate with their families, to enjoy their neighbors, to not have the skulkers about, right? Yeah. And so we've got continued efforts in that arena. It's not the sexy stuff, right? Those aren't the big checks that make everybody, laugh and, and clap and enjoy the festival. But they need to be a fundamental part of who we are. And that is that we've got a safe and secure festival zone and a comfortable one. Right. We've put in water stations. We've added comfort care locations on the festival. We want folks to, to be able to enjoy the festival, stay safe, stay secure, be hydrated. So that's a big focus area. And I think the other one is we are a charitable organization. And to support the festival is to support, maintaining what we do, sustaining what we do for years to come. But we also want our platform to benefit other charitable organizations and community organizations in town. Whether you and your charity, the Boy Scouts, have done, fundraising and exposure raising events at Wichita festivals, Children's Miracle Network, Goodwill, I mentioned, New Manna. We've done food packaging drives and bottled water collection. So we want it to be an all ships raised, get raised by it kind of experience. And that's a big focus for us. And the arts and culture organizations that support the performances and the artistic endeavors in what we do, that's important as well.
I'm going to put you on the spot with a couple questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Do you have a favorite Wichita River Festival event?
That's actually evolved over the years. When my kids were little, one of my very, very favorite things, two very, very favorite things. One was the old Kid Fest that was held over in in Riverside Park on the west side of the river. The Bubble Man of years past and all the activities that would be over there. We brought the Bubble Lady back to Riverfest this last year, by the way. She rocks. So we think we have an inheritor to the Bubble Man lore. But the other thing I really, really liked was the Festival of Broadway. That sort of montage of the upcoming Music Theater of Wichita season that you get, on a Tuesday night on Kennedy Plaza was about my kids' attention span when it came to musical theater. And so we'd put down our blanket and go get the fresh squeezed lemonade and the, yearly funnel cake and really enjoy that. I would say as an adult, the Riverrun is a big one. Mm-hmm. That's, there's a run a week, right? You can color run and you can mud run and you can do whatever. But this is a real tradition for bringing thousands of people. It's the state's longest running and largest road race. It's got a party at the end, right? Music and activities. It's a wellness-oriented, unifying activity. I mean, anything that gets me up at 6 a.m. With a smile on my face is pretty impressive. So I love the Riverrun. But I also really, really like our closing night, whatever the concert is. And we've had great ones. We've had, the Go-Go's. We've had Marky Ramone. We've had the Roots. We've had, last year it was Revolution, Prince's band, and great fireworks stand. It's just that feeling of finale where everyone comes down. These last few years, it's been for the Spirit Aerosystems Rockin' on the River concert. And you just look around, and now kind of as a staffer, right, I can look back and go, all right, nobody died. Everybody was happy. We pulled off a great festival, and you just watch those fireworks go off. The Capitol Federal Fireworks finale is always a spectacular show. Yep. And you think, okay, we as a community did this again.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, in the festival world, that's not easy. You hear about events starting up around the country. What you don't hear is the many of them that have died, and long-standing ones. And it's just because the economics of the entertainment industry have changed. People's expectations and, frankly, attention spans with regard to entertainment have changed. There's just so many opportunities for things you can do or stay at home and not do, that it's a tough world out there. So I'm very proud that we as a community continue to venture out of our air-conditioned living rooms in June and join our neighbors and really make this an awesome celebration. And I'm so proud and thankful for the companies and organizations that use this as a way to give back. Spirit Aerosystems, Koch Industries, CapFed, Textron, Credit Union of America. I mean, you name it. Organizations that take their well-earned resources and contribute that to our celebration. The fact of the matter is the user, the attendee at the festival, pays less than 30% of the overall cost of the event.
Really?
The rest of that is the community support that makes it possible.
Wow.
I mean, this is a $3 to $4 million endeavor every year, and those who buy a funnel cake and buy a button are treasured and needed. But they're bringing in, less than a third of those resources needed, and so we're just so grateful for the intensity and steadfastness of the support that we get.
What about your favorite food court item?
Oh,
that's a tough one, I know.
It's funny. My family's very split on this. My husband, who's normally the healthiest person alive, is a corn dog nut. A Pronto Pup addict for the 9 days of Riverfest. I'm sort of all about the roasted corn and the chicken on the stick. My kids try it all, but end up back at the funnel cake stand.
The staple, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. But it's interesting. People get passionate about different things, from Dippin' Dots to, the giant burrito at Tad's, and we try to make sure there's something for everyone.
You're listening to CEOs You Should Know. Our guest today, Mary Beth Jarvis, the CEO of Wichita Festivals, and also the chair of the Century 2 Performing Arts and Convention Center Citizen Steering Committee. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. How did you get involved with that?
Well, it's one of those, you get asked to serve. I feel very strongly that Wichita is in a period of potential energy, right? To use this sort of dorky scientific term. We have made lots of progress as a community. We've always grown and evolved. We've always been, birthing new businesses and creating new entities and maintaining energy. But I actually do think in that long and distinguished history, we're at a unique point. We've got the opportunity. I think we have a felt sense of urgency. You look at the Project Wichita surveys, 14,000 people around the community, a statistically significant group of every one of us, every neighborhood, every demographic, every age, every socioeconomic class. Everyone weighed in to say what they thought Wichita maybe should strive to be in the next 10 years, in the next 50 years. And the thing that we all around the community agreed on the most distinctive data point out of that entire effort, 86% of Wichitans, and by the way, you can't get 86% of people to agree that the sky is blue.
Right.
86% of Wichitans of all ages and makeups believed strongly that it was essential for Wichita to change in order to retain and attract the next generation. So I think folks generally realize that we're at a pivot point where we've got the opportunity, we've got the charter to do some exciting things for our future. And I personally believe, and the majority of Wichitans who participated in Project Wichita agree. We had about 60% say that it was essential or very important, not even counting those that said it was important, that we invest in a performing arts facility, whether renovated from the existing Century 2 facilities or new, that could serve the next generation of Wichitans and that did justice to the amazing arts and culture organizations, Music Theater Wichita, the symphony, the opera, the ballet, you name it, for years to come. And so when I was asked by the mayor, when all 12 of us were asked by city leadership to serve, we agreed that it was an effort worth the thousands of hours of our time over the last year. So we're getting ready to come up with a final recommendation. And this is not a simple, tastes great, less filling debate about whether you keep a blue roofed C2 or you don't. It's more complex than that. Century 2, the round building, was built, it's 50 years old this month. And as someone somewhat older than 50, I can authentically say we want to celebrate what a great gift it's been to the community. But the fact is, it's not going to hold modern conventions. It's just not suited for it. It's 2.5 times bigger than we need it for performing arts. And because of that imbalance and the fact that we really need to invest in convention facilities that are not round with low roofs and, whatever, there's some complexity to figuring out whether or not it modernized should be our home for performing arts going forward, or if we need it to be something different or even go away, not my decision. But for the performing arts, what do we need to have to do them justice? So I think in the next month or so, our committee, which is extraordinary, by the way, we're bankers to cellists, folks that have been involved with performing arts and fine arts professionally to those that have supported it or been patrons of it. We've got folks that have experience managing giant, complexes and facilities. We have folks who know how to plan giant events, right? So we've got a lot of expertise at the table, but we found a lot of surprising things, even for those that had known what we thought were some of the core facts. And I think we know 3 things right now. One, we have kicked this can down the road as long as we can. There are no more small fixes. There's no more, delaying. We need a long-term solution because we're slowly strangling our performing arts organizations, and we are leaving behind the arts and culture potential that this community has always shown and needs to show for the next 50 years. The second thing we know is that in the process of coming to a future solution, we can't kill the exact organizations that have made it great. We can't go dark for a season or 2 or 3 with Music Theater or the symphony. They will wake up again with no musicians and no education programs. I mean, it's just too destructive. So any solution we have has got to keep them active and lit, and performing in a steady way. But beyond that, we're still fine tuning. Is there a way to renovate a chunk of Century 2 to be a worthy modern performing arts facility? We haven't seen renovation scenarios that are all that terrific yet. The one that the community sort of debated a little over a year ago, I'm not sure folks realize this, but the renovate scenario that everybody was saying, yeah, keep Century 2, let's renovate it. It actually involved taking a box, a rectangular building with a higher and stronger ceiling, which we need to support everything from the Phantom of the Opera chandelier to modern, performances, and sort of sticking it out the top, take a shoebox and shove it up through the frisbee of the Century 2 roof. Well, that's just fraught with compromise, right? That's I don't call that preserving, the icon of C2. So we've actually got folks back on the drawing board seeing if there's a renovation scenario that's not so dumb. But we've also looked closely at building new. And if you build new, something that would be about 40% the size of the current C2, because C2 is bigger by 2.5 times than you need for performing arts, you've got a choice. What do you do then with the giant area under the blue roof? Right. Do you try to repurpose the Century 2 round building? Do you, or do you value that space for something else, a gathering space for the community, a signature park or outdoor entertainment facilities? So a lot of questions to be answered, and we're going to try to get a recommendation that's smart and that the citizens we represented for the last year can be proud of. So we got to do something. It's not going to be small. It can't kill our performing arts organizations, and it needs to be something we can all be proud of. There's no sense doing a giant project and have it be meh, right?
Yeah, right.
We're not building a box.
Yeah.
So we're just, we've got a lot of work to do still, but we've learned a lot to get here.
Very nice. Maybe one more question here for you, Mary Beth. What are your personal goals and plans for the future?
Oh, that's always so impossible to know, right? So my kids are in their 20s, and via the Air Force and other reasons, they're sort of all over the country. And it's interesting. I think, I've had the privilege to travel a lot, and, you look at the town that has been our adopted home for the past 24 years, and I want it to be great. And I want it to feel unified, and I want it to have an excellent quality of place, quality of life. And so I think keep working hard on that front. And but I might sneak in a bit more travel along the way now that I've got the kids out of school.
Right.
And
Nice.
so we got the empty nest stuff to figure out in
Right.
the Jarvis
A new
household.
chapter.
That's right.
Well, thanks for being on CEOs You Should Know.
All right. Happy to be here.
That's another CEO You Should Know. Thanks for being a part of our community. And thank you for listening to this iHeart Wichita radio station.